Welcome to Masters of Self University Podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Masters of Self University Podcast. I'm Ellie Lee.
And I am Danny Morley.
And we are so excited to have you here together with us in this moment. Danny, how are you?
I'm stoked to be here as ever. I'm really excited. It's snowing out right now. It's coming down. So I'm just going to be spending the day inside with myself, just going inward probably.
Oh, yeah, it's snowing here in New York too. So we're definitely in the same vibration right now of just, kind of romantic outside. Mm-hmm. It's this like very cozy kind of energy. But yeah, you and I, we've been talking because you and I discussed the podcast a lot and like the things that we want to talk about. And I think we really landed on spiritual awakenings today. And very much so tied to the healing journey. And we are becoming certified as mystical life coaches for a reason. And so what a journey the spiritual awakening is. I think it's the most fascinating experience on so many levels, and I was never prepared for mine. I don't know if you were prepared for yours, but man, when it hit, I as soon as I got a taste of it, I was like, I want it all. I want it all. So how did it start for you? Like, did you feel like you were always like a very spiritual kid?
Yes and no. So when I was a kid, I grew up in a very small village. It's called Mattersey in the UK. And there's a very strong presence of spirituality there. So we're going back about 1,000 years now. There is a monastery that was there where monks would go and study the Bible, or I don't know if it was even the Bible then, or they would, as you've seen in films, they would write things out, and that's what they would live, and they would do their monk work there. And then Henry VIII came in, did the Church of England, dissolution of the monasteries, and destroyed it. So you can still visit it's called the Mattersey Priory these days, and it's just old ruins from 1,000 years ago when a monastery once stood there. And so that's left a big kind of impact on the area, and now they built something called Mattersey Hall, which is where you can go and study the Bible and get a degree there. So the village is like just a few hundred people, and then about 100 of those people are people coming from all around Europe to study religion. So growing up, I had a very strong influence of Christianity, Church of England. People would come in and give us lectures, but I never really attached myself to religion. It never really grabbed me. I had too many questions that weren't answered by it. But there was still this spark of there was something more, there was a higher power. And I wasn't sure what that was. And then later on in my life, it all kind of came out when I got depression. I fell into a very deep and dark depression and started asking questions. And at the time, I was actually traveling through Thailand, Vietnam, India, and really started opening myself to different ideas of what spirituality was. I was getting heavily involved with yoga, and I think that is a process which really opens one up to different energies in the body. And but really it was going to the depths of my depression, and starting to ask questions of who am I, and what is this thing called life that put me on this path of spirituality. How about yourself?
I grew up very Christian. My mother is a child of a pastor. So I was at church Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like literally, I played drums for like, you know how like some churches, they have like a youth group band? Like I played the drums in my like youth group band. Oh. And we would sing like worship songs and all this stuff. And I feel like I never had a choice in belief or faith. I think that I was just kind of forced to believe in whatever was being presented to me, even though I felt like I never really fully connected with what was being told to me. And for me, my whole life, I think religion has brought me a lot of shame. Like, it has brought me a lot of sexual shame. It always made me feel so much guilt if I like sinned, or like I wasn't always studying the Bible or feeling like this connection with Jesus or whatever it was. And the whole narrative that I was fed growing up was, do you accept Christ as your savior? And if you do, make sure that all you do in this life is like put him first and think about him, and know and understand that when you end this life, you'll have to face him and you'll go to heaven or hell, right? That's really the narrative that I was fed. So I think I lived my whole life in fear of everything. You know, wow. I remember like having sex and things like that, like God forbid, like that was something that I was so shamed about. And I used to remember like, you know, making out with boyfriends like in college and feeling so much guilt and feeling so much like I'm dirty and this is so sinful and like I have to repent and I have to ask for forgiveness. And so for me, it was a very misaligned kind of thing that I was forced into. And then I went through a very deep traumatic experience, and perhaps one day I will share that, but that really changed the course for me. And that's when I was like, there's no such thing as God. There's no such thing as Jesus. Everything's fake. And I don't believe anything. And I'm just gonna live this life like the best way I can. And I think that's when I became very entrenched in the third dimension, right? Of chasing clout, of chasing notoriety, of chasing validation. You know, in my eyes, after, you know, I renounced all of this, I was like, well, the thing to do is be famous and rich. So that's what I'm really gonna do, you know, because I thought that was the pinnacle. And when I started my self-love healing journey, I never knew it was gonna become a spiritual journey, but
same here.
Ooh,
Same
right?
here.
You don't, I think that's the beauty of it, is you're not going in with an agenda, right? You're going in with just this openness because you're at this place where you're so desperate. You know, you're on your knees and there's no one there to lift you up. But it is when you are broken and on your knees is when the light starts shimmering in a little bit. And I think...
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. No,
well, there's a quote that just comes to mind as you said that, and I forget exactly how it is, but it's very symbolic for my journey. And it's I went in to look for myself and I found God, and when I look for God, I find myself. It's something along those lines, but that's the whole thing. It's like you lose yourself and you're looking for it, and in doing that you find there's so much more, and there's a connection to this higher power which you might not have believed. Is that kind of like what you went through?
Yo, that quote made me emotional. It makes me emotional because how deep is that? I don't even think our human brain can grasp the depth of that quote, right? When I started going down my spiritual journey, I had no idea what was going to be open to me. I just knew that something within me was lighting up, and I knew that I had to follow that, right? And the more I follow that and the deeper I go, it is endless, right? Of what we can learn, of how far we can evolve in this existence. And I think the whole thing of I am God and God is me, for me, thinking God lives within you, that's like, oh my God, how dare you? You know, I think coming from religion, like, how dare you think God lives within you? And that, when I say that to people, like, I am creator and creator is me. I am just a splitting piece of creator, and I'm existing in this form and doing what it is that I need to do. When you say that to people who are very entrenched in religion, right, and unconscious, they go, how dare you? And that's when all the shame comes in, right? That's the guilt. That's the disconnect. It's so disconnected from source, from God, from creator, saying that you are separate. And I think that something that you and I learn is, no, we're all one.
We are all one. We are all one. And the ego does its best job to keep us apart and separated.
Sure does.
Yeah. And for me, the big thing was questioning, well, what is this ego? I mentioned to you before this podcast, the big thing that I transitioned from was the knowing that it's not I am Danny, it's that I am.
Danny, you just say that again, just a little bit slower, because it's so good. It's so good. Say it again.
I can't remember exactly how I said it, so I'll try.
That was good.
But it's the transition. It's the transition going from the ego, which is I am Danny, to the knowing of I am.
Woo!
From this, I want to share my little journey with this. Kind of big journey. I suffered from something called depersonalization and derealization. If there's anyone listening to this that is suffering from that, my heart really goes out to you, because it is the most confusing, traumatizing, just difficult place you can be in. And it's where the depersonalization part is when you stop feeling like you are yourself. So you start dissociating from Danny. And then the realization is when you start disassociating from reality. So it's depersonalizing and derealizing. So you're kind of feel like you're a floating cloud of consciousness, observing the body, observing the mind, observing the thoughts. And you start, it's amazing, because it leads eventually to a spiritual awakening if you have enough awareness, because you stop associating with who you are as this physical being, and you start noticing, I'm here, I'm talking to somebody, but I'm aware of the person that is talking. I'm having these conversations with people, my mum, family members, trying to tell them about my experiences in Asia, but it felt like I was observing myself from a bird's eye view and having these thoughts at the same time that I was thinking. So I came to realize that I'm not even my thoughts. This whole lifetime, I thought, well, yes, I'm my mind, I'm my body, but we're not, with these spiritual beings having just this moment of awareness within this physical thing. And it's beautiful and it's wonderful. But when you're not ready to face that truth, when you don't really understand that, and you haven't got a teacher who's there to guide you along on this journey, it is incredibly hard and incredibly difficult. And I was like that for a couple of years, and I was still using caffeine and alcohol, as we do in Western society, which was just making the separation go further and further away. It wasn't until I started really taking my mental health super seriously, cutting out those things, and then I actually worked with some plant medicine, which really helped to bring me back together, as I like to think of it. But just a baseline, and this work that we're doing at MSU has really allowed me to elevate far beyond that. But that's kind of like how I became awake, is by just noticing this difference of becoming the observer, which is what they talk about a lot in, meditation and yoga. Is there's a great book called The Untethered Soul. If you're listening to this, you've not read it, you should definitely read it. And he talks a lot about becoming this observer, the observer of your own thoughts, the observer of your own emotions, your own body. And we do a lot of that in Masters of Self University.
We do.
We're deprogramming the psyche and the whole being that we are.
In Rachel's words, the mind is batshit crazy. So
the mind is batshit crazy. Yeah. And it will lie to you. It will tell you some crazy stuff. But loving that aspect of ourselves. I think it wasn't really until I started loving this this depersonalization and derealization, it wasn't until I got to a place where I was thanking it for what it was showing me that it actually started to really heal, and I felt more grounded within my physical being. But ultimately it left me to this place where I knew that what I am is beyond this. And eventually when I realized that, it gave me great relief, because for so long I've worried about death. I'd worried about dying. And through this process, I really had to just annihilate the ego of what Danny was. He had to leave, and I had to accept that this thing that I called Danny is just an illusion.
Yes. So many points I could go down, and so many. What a powerful, powerful moment that is, right? When you understand that you are not your mind, you are not these things that you've listened to your whole life. I think when that hit me, I remember I had to sit and just let that sink in, because I had taken so much identity from the things that my mind told me that I needed to take identity from. And then realizing one day that none of that is true, that those are all illusions. I mean, can you imagine what happens to a person? That's why the awakening is so crazy, because you are literally unlocking level 1. To become aware means you are conscious. To become conscious means you know and you remember that you are a divine being having a temporary physical experience. And we don't need to become all of these things. There's nothing to prove. You know, we were already whole and amazing, and now we just got to go back to that because we had forgotten. That's why they call Earth, you know, the school where you learn, because you are here to learn very specific things. But I think that's my favorite thing about Rachel is this. She gives you these beautiful nuggets of spirituality without like slamming it down your throat and making you feel like you need to believe that. Like, don't you feel like your journey is your journey not because you read it somewhere or someone told you, but because you've experienced so much beauty and magic, just you on your own?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And are you talking within my life or this, just working with Rachel and Masters of Self?
No, ever since you've awakened to yourself.
Because both, to go down that road. But yeah, definitely within my 100%. And the amount of growth that I've been able to get just from, I mean, spiritual awakenings are very difficult, right?
Yes.
You get dragged through the muck normally.
Yes.
And, you know, there's the ancient metaphor of the lotus flower emerging out of the bog or whatever, you know, the murky waters, and you've got to get through all the bad stuff.
Yes.
But then on the other side is this beauty and this joy, and there's a level of peace and freedom that I have now, that's ever evolving.
Yes.
That could only be done by transcending through these, you know, lower vibrational states, getting through, fighting depression, conquering it, anxiety. These things come up and they're there to show us, they're teachers. You know, they're the pain teacher, is Paul Chek talks about. It's one of my favorite quotes. They're there to show us stuff, to bring us back to the light, as you said, bring us back to that place where we started. Graham Hancock, one of my favorite authors, he talks a lot on kind of like ancient civilizations and anthropology. He describes us as a species with amnesia, and what he's referring to is the fact that we don't know our full past,
right,
in terms of society. But I also think it relates a lot to that quote, to like who we are as spiritual beings.
Yes.
We get born in this world and we forget what we are.
Yes.
And we're in a time right now, this very special time, where we're coming back to love. We're coming back to what we were and what we forgot we were. And I see us as part of the tribe that's helping guide society back to this place of love.
Yes.
And out of this egoic mind. And to do that, you have to awaken.
Yes. And, you know, you and I were discussing before, spiritual awakening, yes, it is, it'll slam you, it'll kick you right in the hiney, baby, where it hurts. And I think the problem with it is that there are really there's no pamphlet to understand how to navigate this, right? Yes, because it is individual, but also there's so much garbage out there, right? There's so much bypassing, there's so much shit. And I think we were guided, because we were calling it in, right? A teacher that can help us navigate these wounds and this pain. Because the pain, you can be aware, but it doesn't mean that you're healing, right? And when you understand, okay, you feel it, it's very real, it's very visceral, you know, we feel it in every morsel of our body, but nobody's telling us the next step. And I think that's where Rachel has been such a game changer, because she comes in and she's like, hey, let me show you, let me tell you. And then it's nothing, it's just, we can do this on our own. And I think that's the beauty of this work, is the tools that are given to us to understand that it is about loving. It is about love. Every twist and turn and path and road leads to love. But nobody tells us that, you know? So we get lost. Like I always say, you get lost in the sauce. Okay, get lost in the sauce.
And there's a lot of sauce out there.
There is. There
There's
is.
a lot of sauce.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely got lost a few times. And you're right. Yeah, 100% was looking for a teacher and feel grateful that I found the right one. And the best part about the teacher that we both find is that all Rachel is doing is opening us up to the teachers that we are. She's making sure that we know that we're the guides for our own life. And there's so many questions that I want to ask her, but I know she's just going to say the same thing. Drop into your heart.
Yes.
And what does your heart say?
Yes.
It's
get out of
always
your
the same
mind.
answer.
Yeah, get out of your mind. Drop into your heart.
So I've stopped asking her all the questions. I'm trying to answer some myself, and my heart has been helping.
Yes. Yeah. I think something that resonated with me was I remember being a kid, and I would look around this world and I would cry all the time because I didn't understand this place. I remember thinking that, not being conscious, not being aware, and me asking myself, what are you saying? Like, I would look around and I'd go, okay, so it seems like other people have been here before, but I don't know this place. Like, it always felt very foreign to me. Earth always felt really foreign to me, but nobody ever gave me an understanding of what is this place and why am I here and why is it so like dark here? I used to think this stuff. And then when I had my spiritual awakening and I started going deeper into who we really are, everything that I was reading, I mean, not everything, but the things that were resonating with me had a deep, like it hit me deep somewhere that I couldn't explain. And that's what saved me because I realized, oh, this isn't just it. This, like, because all my life I just thought, so this is it. And then one day I die and I don't know what happens to me after I die. And that scares the hell out of me. And also, what does it feel like to die? And like, do we just disappear? Like, what happens? And then to understand that this is just a stop in the road, baby. That this is eternal. That we are here to experience what we're here to experience. And then we go off to the next thing. And that has given me a kind of peace where the fears of so many things that I couldn't understand have dissipated. And it is this true faith, and I think that's what faith is. That to me is faith, not shove it down your throat and scare the hell out of you and think you're going to go to hell with the devil, It is, let me experience and find this on my own. And then let me drop into my heart and feel it. And if it lights my heart on fire, that to me is truth.
That's the knowing.
Yes.
Right.
The knowing.
Let me ask you, because I struggled with health anxiety my entire life. So like a fear, it's basically stemmed from the fear of dying. And it wasn't until I had to battle depression and really went through an awakening that I was really guided to, okay, this is your biggest fear, so face it. Did you have that growing up?
Oh, yeah.
A fear of death or any health anxiety or?
I grew up in New Jersey, okay? I always thought a tornado was gonna come and kill me. I was so scared all the time. I always thought someone was gonna sneak into my room and kill me. I thought like it was all the time, like of just this insane fear that I was gonna die and that there was nothing I could do about it. So I was a kid going through all of that stuff. So I can relate to that like crazy. And then not having an answer until like literally 3 years ago, where I'm like, okay, I wish someone told me this when I was little, it would have saved me. But yeah, I felt that fear, that dread, that the unknown,
Yeah. Whenever I would see anything that was not right on my body or feel, I would freak out and it would be, it's going to be cancer, I'm going to die. And that was kind of like the way my mind was wired. That was the program that was running was, this is wrong, I'm going to die. And it led to a lot of like panic attacks. Not a loads. I think I had maybe like 6 really major ones in my life. But it was super scary whenever I would get into that zone. It was like a full spiral of, I could feel the world closing in on me. And then luckily, I never acted out of like great fear, and I never did any self-harm, but I know like that happens. It's out there. And I've definitely battled with suicidal thoughts. When I had my first suicidal thought in India at the Taj Mahal, which is a really strange place to listen to your mind start saying, well, you can end it.
How old were you?
It was 2019, so not too long ago.
Wow.
2019, it was around March. I was visiting the Taj Mahal, and I walked down the side of it, and there's this area where you can go by the river.
Wow.
And it was really beautiful, but perception is your reality, and that's not what I was seeing. You know, I was seeing some kind of physical beauty, but feeling completely dead and empty on the inside.
Yep.
And I just heard a voice for the first time just say, well, you could end it all and you wouldn't have to feel this. And that was the moment that I really realized I've got a problem here. And so I went home eventually to England and started studying depression and mental health. And I ended up finding the work of Joe Dispenza, and I love Joe Dispenza.
Me too.
And listening to him really gave me a lot of hope. For someone who has depression, you'll know that being hopeless is one of the main, kind of feelings that you feel every day. And listening to him, it was sparking something within me. But it wasn't really until... Did you have any defining moments where you're like, that woke me up?
Ooh, well, I
had a few, but
Yeah.
I want to hear yours first.
Well, I want to just kind of go back to what you were saying about the panic attacks. For me, my really bad panic attacks started happening to me in high school. So around 15 to 18,
Wow.
I was having really bad panic attacks where I felt everything was caving in. I would black out. People would find me on the streets sometimes. There was one time I blacked out in front of a store, and
Wow.
my mom had to come find me. And so my panic attacks were really horrible. And my first suicidal thoughts were in high school. So I remember I was in my bathroom and I was sitting and I was crying and I was feeling everything. And all I heard was, you could just get something sharp and just end it here. And I lived in that for a long time. And I think to survive, I really started dissociating. I
Right.
think that I, like you, in my 20s, when I think back to my 20s, I felt like I was floating for most of it. I remember I was paragliding in Austria. And as I was getting ready to be geared up, I knew that I wasn't going to feel any of it. I knew that I could see everything, but I knew that I wasn't going to feel anything. And I jumped off the cliff, and, the guy sitting next to me, he's like, isn't it beautiful? And I felt nothing. And I think that was a survival mechanism for me, I need to do this life because for the sake of my family, I probably can't end my life, right? For the sake of the people that I love. So I gotta bite this out. And I don't know. So I went into survival mode. And I think that's why this awakening is so deep for me. So when people, project on me, or when people mock me or something like that, I'm like, or when people used to go to me, I had my spiritual awakening in LA, and they were like, that's so LA. And I used to just be like, you have no idea. You have no idea what this journey is. You have no idea how precious it is to me. And so it's been something that's just been so deep for me and dear to me. But I just wanted to relate to you because I resonate with you. And I think a lot of people at home, if you're listening to this podcast, it's probably you're on the same journey as us. And you are not alone. We have all dealt this by ourselves. And we are now just finding each other and sharing stories of pain, of loneliness, of not understanding why we don't fit in so easily to this world. And it's because we were never meant to,
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, let that sit for a minute. Oh, beautiful words. That was so lovely.
But yeah, I love Joe Dispenza too. For me, it was Eckhart Tolle. When I started reading The Power of Now, I was like, what's going on? What's going on? When I really started to understand the ego, and I just started deep diving into that. And then when the whole introduction of the fifth dimension and the Great Awakening was introduced to me, I was like, I resonate with that because I've awakened, and I need to understand this more. And the more souls you meet on this journey, the cooler it gets, because you really realize this is happening. This is something that is here, and this has birthed, and here we are, and what a ride.
We are in a major birthing process.
Major.
For the entire planet right now. But let's not go too deep down that one on today. But
not today.
I only about 3 weeks ago found out about this 5th dimensional ascension. And if I would have heard about that 1 or 2 years ago, no way would I have ever resonated or paid attention to any of it. I would have cast it aside and been very close-minded. But now I hear it and I'm like, yeah, I feel that. I see it. I see it every day. I feel it every day. I'm more aware. I feel connected to it. So yeah, it's an exciting time that we're living in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Danny, something that I've discovered too is I think we witness a lot on this journey, right? We start walking the path with someone and they go down another road, and people come and people go and all of these things, right? And what I've noticed is there are a lot of people who awaken but can't finish the marathon because it's too hard. And what I want to reiterate to anybody at home is, this is the hardest thing you will ever do.
Yes, agreed.
Hands down. There is nothing harder than facing your darkness. There's nothing harder.
Because that's what we're talking about here. Really.
Yes, truly, truly. But if you stay on, if you bite the bullet, if you go all the way, aren't you a little curious to see what and who you can unlock within yourself? Because I sure am. I didn't come into this life to play small or play weak. Like, go big or go home. And so if I'm awake, baby, I'm going to be awake the whole time. The whole time. Because this is truly magic. And we're only beginning. That's the crazy part.
We're only beginning.
We're only beginning.
And it is magic, you're right. The words you're using right now, I can feel the spells in the air.
Woo! We
There's
are
energy
casting.
behind it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
It's beautiful.
to exist during this time too, you and I were talking about, like, many of us are here to break generational curses. We are awakening for a reason. And it stops with you. If you decide to take home, if you decide to take home the home run for all your ancestors, beautiful. Because that's what we're here to do. It's been too much pain. The earth can't hold this darkness anymore.
No, it's shedding its layers and it's shifting its energy. And,
Yes.
And we're all ready. And if you're not ready, that's okay too.
Yes.
That's okay. No, there's
okay.
no judgment. Where it does, as Rachel says, it takes strength to heal. Weak people can't heal.
Yeah.
And I know that's super triggering.
Yes.
But it's true.
Yes. But also, if it's triggering, you're welcome. It's a gift.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
You're seeing a part of yourself that isn't at peace.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Because I think one of the most profound things that I've learned on this awakening is everything is within.
Oh yeah.
It's always been there. It's there. It's there right now. There's nowhere you need to go, And I think that's where, people get lost in like doing like ayahuasca ceremonies like over and over and over and over again, right? But you're not understanding that you're still seeking outside of you. Mm-hmm. The answer is it's within. And I think that alone is so profound, because if we all knew that, this would be a very different world.
And when you say knew that, there's a difference between hearing it and knowing. Because we hear people say that all the time. Mm-hmm. Everything lies within, We hear so many people talking about that. But do you actually understand what it means? Do you actually feel that inside of you? Because they're two separate things.
Yes.
and turning that understanding or that knowledge into embodied wisdom and knowing.
Yes.
That's what we do here at Masters of Self University. That's what Rachel is teaching us all. Ellie and myself as coaches.
Yeah.
We're taking this knowledge and we're really exploring what it means to live it every day and feel it within.
Yes.
And it's beautiful.
And I think, I want people at home listening to, like, yes, we are doing a podcast together, but I think I could say for you, if I could speak for you, Danny, you and I are not people where we fake it till we make it, right? I think everything we do has to be rooted in authenticity. It has to be rooted in that feeling, in this knowing. And I think the reason why we ride or die so hard with Miss Fiori and MSU is because when she speaks to our soul.
Directly.
And she hits.
Her gifts. Yeah.
She hits. And I think that's why we are so passionate about this work, because this isn't about following any guru or, get on this, how people like to think that, like, this is, that's all cultish and all that stuff. It's like, if you really understood what we are doing and what is about to be presented to the rest of the world, you'd be on this like pie, baby. Because this is the golden ticket.
I would love to share something on that.
Yeah.
So this, because that's exactly it. So to go off what you just said, especially about like ayahuasca, I did ayahuasca in May of 2021, and it was an extremely transformational experience for me. I didn't have any of the crazy hallucinations or visions that a lot of people have. What I received was very energetic and physical healing, and it really did bring me back into what felt like some kind of order and baseline of health. But recently, I've been really going deep with the work that we're doing of the Rachel Fiori method. And I got extremely triggered this last week by my overwhelmed programs. And it stemmed back to an abandonment wound I had from childhood. And I had to leave work one day because this trauma was coming up. And I was ready to heal it. I was done with suppressing and repressing these feelings. I was acknowledging them and seeing what they were, and learning to really and truly love them and thank them for showing themselves to me. So I took the day off work and I spent 8 hours of crying, of tears pouring down, 8 hours of purging out all this negative emotion that was trapped and locked inside of me. And in that day, I did more healing that day than in the 2 weeks that I went to Peru.
Wow.
At least that's from my own perspective.
Wow.
And this only was possible because I've learned this method of connecting to my heart and allowing things to come up and be healed. And not one time did I ever need anyone, although I did contact a coach to help me work through the process at part of the day. I didn't reach out to Rachel, hey, I need your help. No, this healing was down to me. It was all the work that I did. And that's what really how I feel it really sets us apart and what we're doing here from other people.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, please take it away.
No, I was just going to say, she's teaching us and reminding us that we are alchemists.
Right.
So this energy is coming up that has lived with him deeply within him for a long time. And it was coming up to be asked to be alchemized into something more powerful, because like Rachel always says, and like we've always learned, energy doesn't die.
Yeah, we know that from science.
Yes, right.
It can only be, transferred.
Yes.
It can never be destroyed.
Exactly.
So what we're doing here is we're alchemizing this energy.
Yes.
Thankfully, I was on this path, and if I was never awakened to the idea of us being spiritual beings and being able to transmute and transform this energy, it probably would have stayed locked in my psyche for the end of time.
Yes.
So just to bring it back to spiritual awakenings, without being awake to what we are, without going through that process of understanding, okay, look at this, look at what we are, look how magnificent life is and how special we are and what we really are. It's like once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Absolutely.
As soon as it's within your awareness of knowing who we are and what we are, you can't undo that. And I spent a little bit of time questioning it, is it really, are we really? No, we must be just finite beings living a finite existence with no meaning or purpose. No. We are here for a reason. We chose this body, these parents, these challenges, these tasks. We chose it all to grow and evolve the collective consciousness and get closer to love.
Ooh, put that on a mug. Okay? Put that on a mug. Yes. And, like you, I think a lot of us had a very triggering week. I think a lot of things came up to be seen, obviously. And like you, I was massively triggered and a very hardcore wound came out. And had I not known to be with it, to love it, to come back to self, to understand that I have the power to really shift this frequency, I'd probably be in a spiral right now. I'd probably be in a hole, okay? All right? Where nobody could rescue me kind of thing. And so this work is really about understanding that everything that you seek is right here, right now. That the suffering that you've always been going through, you don't have to suffer. Yes, Rachel always says, one of her favorite things she always says, she's like, you will experience pain. That is the human experience. You will always experience pain, but you don't have to suffer. And I'm like, it's so beautiful.
I got so lost. So lost in my suffering.
Yes.
It almost becomes a point where you become the suffering.
Yes.
You don't know your life without it. You become addicted to it. I think there even is a neurochemical addiction that you can get to the suffering itself. And without that, you become no one.
Yes.
Which is great, because if you become no one, you become everyone.
Yeah, right.
If you've not seen the film Becoming No One, it's on Gaia with Ram Dass. It's fantastic.
Yes.
But yeah, I got really, really lost in my suffering. I just didn't know where is there a way out. I didn't understand how there even was a way out.
Right.
The pain.
Right.
And as I was telling you earlier this morning, one of my hardest parts with depression was the lack of pain, the lack of anything that I was feeling, just a complete numbness. And if there's anyone out there listening right now and you're feeling exactly how we're talking, there is a way out.
Yes.
I promise you.
Yes.
And the way out is by opening your heart.
Yes.
And you might not be able to feel your heart, but if you find the right guide, come talk to us at Masters of Self University.
Yes.
There is a way out. I promise you.
Yes.
If there is someone out there right now that's listening, what would you want to say to them, Ellie? Maybe they're going through a spiritual awakening right now. They're seeing the walls crumble. The veil is being lifted.
Yes.
And they don't know what the heck is going on anymore. Reality is not making sense. You don't know who you are.
Right.
What's
up or down?
Say? Yes. Because that's what it was like for me.
Yeah.
I went from a place of, I've got my stuff together. Not at all.
Yeah. I'd say healing will bring you home. You can get caught up in the manifestation and the crystals and all the things if you want, if you choose that, right? We have a choice. But healing is the way home without any of that. And the more you understand your wounds and you accept all these parts of you, because nobody ever told me to accept my pain. Nobody told me that. So what I do, I hated my pain. I hid my pain. I hated it. Hid it.
Yeah, we're trained to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what if you could love it? What if? And so for anyone out there, healing is the answer. Because as you heal, you raise in frequency. And you are just energy. So imagine living in a frequency of gratitude, love, peace, power. Like, that sounds very lit to me. Okay. So I that's why I stay on this journey, because I know what those moments feel like, and I want to be on that wavelength,
I remember a time in my life a few years ago where I'd started breath work, I'd started meditation, I'd started all these different practices, cold showers, daily exercise, diet. I was trying to get everything in my physical being to be optimized to heal, and it was helping massively. But I was met with this huge wall of resistance. It was every time that I would start to get better, I would feel this resistance to something, and it would knock me back. And then I would get caught in this mental thing of, you're never going to heal. You're always going to feel like this. And it would send me on these deep and dark spirals. And it wasn't really until I started this work that those spirals got non-existent. I haven't had one in months.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because once we learn to really love those spirals and whatever it is that your body is trying to communicate with you, once we learn to love those aspects of ourselves, that's when they really get elevated. And that's when we elevate and become bigger and larger versions of what we were going through.
And on that note, Danny, thank you for this beautiful conversation. To everybody at home, thank you so much for listening. Subscribe, leave us a rating, a review, whatever you want to say. Express love because we love you. Anything you want to close out with, Danny?
If you're listening to this, I love you.
Yes. And get in contact with us at mastersofselfuniversity.com. DM us, whatever. DM Rachel. We are all here. We're all walking each other home, as Ram Dass says. And we are honored to be on this journey with you. And we love you. And we will see you guys next time. Bye.